Here we see in the next section, the data and methods is what they call it. And sometimes we just call it methods and it includes data. But in this section, the most important thing to talk about is what data set are you actually using? And it talks about a stratified sampling scheme. So for those of you, who took my specific class, we talked a lot about stratified sampling. Hopefully all the other sections of 349 did as well. But that tells you something about how the data was collected, talking about geographics data with Latino households. Now here, because it is a Hispanic healthcare survey, they mention the languages that the survey was given in. They mention the response rate of the survey. And if you notice, they actually say it's comparable to other surveys. And they mention, too, that we are going to be studying the HESC and the BRFIS. So both of those are in our class. And it gives you all of the restrictions of the population. So here now they talk very specifically about their variables, how their variables were constructed, and they talk about how the categories that they used. So all of these instances are important to understanding before we even get into what the data runs are, what it is we're looking at. These are all the things that you have to set up before you get into the data runs. And here they talk about their independent variables and then analytic strategy. So analytic strategy refers to thinking about deciding which tests you're going to use. So when you were in Health Science 349 and you were doing your final research project, you had that decision to make, right? You had variables that you were looking at, and you had to decide, well, which test is the appropriate test here? And what am I going to present? This is the section in the article here where the authors are talking about that exact same thing. First, they give the unweighted frequency. So these are descriptive statistics, right? Just so that we know what it is their variables look like. And then they mention here that they use multinomial logistic regression models. Now, that doesn't mean that that's something you have to use or know about necessarily. Logistic regression is usually at the master's or doctorate level. But an unadjusted regression, again, so the methods might be a little bit more advanced than what we're doing at the bachelor's level. But I think what's important to know here is that they are doing these kind of quantitative methods, right? If you're talking about regression models, that's something that's a quantitative analysis. Now down here, it says, we controlled for. We added a control. You see that text here? That means that they added those things as independent variables. When you have a regression model, linear, logistic, any other kind of regression, the more variables you put into your independent variables, then those things are what's called held constant for your interpretation. And so it's important to control for those factors so that it's not biasing your results. So all of these things until we get here is just talking about what it is they're going to do in this study. They're laying out all of the groundwork so that the reader knows exactly what they did to get to the results.